Welcome to part 3 of Changed, chapter 15, verses 47 through verse 48. Right now we are in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. We're in verse 53 now. Verse 53 delivers the logical and biological requirement for the event described in verse 52, which says, "For this, the perishable body must put on the imperishable, and this mortal body must put on immortality." So let's look at the phrase for must. The Greek word for must is dei, D-E-I, which notes an absolute, unalterable, divine necessity. It's a cosmic requirement. And this loops us directly right back to verse 50. Flesh and blood cannot inherit. Because our current anatomy is fundamentally incompatible with the eternal state, the upgrade is not optional. It is mandatory. Because our current anatomy is fundamentally incompatible with the eternal state. So the upgrade is not optional. It is mandatory. Let's look at the phrase disperishable. It refers to our susceptibility to physical decay and aging, disease and structural breakdown. And the phrase this mortal refers to our vulnerability to physical death. So the emphasis of this, by using the word this twice, Paul is likely gesturing to his own physical body and the bodies of his listeners. He is highlighting the immediate, tangible reality of human fragility. Let's look at the phrase put on the imperishable, a body completely immune to decay, sickness, and aging. That's imperishable. And the phrase that says put on immortality is a body completely immune to death. It possesses endless, unquenchable life. So the metaphor of clothing in the phrase put on literally means to pull on a garment or dress oneself. So let's make a theological point here. This choice of words proves that the resurrection body is not an entirely new creation created from scratch, leaving the old body abandoned. Instead, the old body is clothed over and swallowed up by the new heavenly reality. Your identity remains, but your physical frame is fundamentally transformed. The clothing metaphor shows the perfect balance between the two. There is continuity. It is this body that gets clothed. And discontinuity, the garment changes. It changes it from mortal to mortal. Well, that would be the reversal of Genesis 3. In the Garden of Eden, sin caused mankind to put on fig leaves and skins to hide their shame and mortality. But in the resurrection, God provides the ultimate clothing, immortality, which permanently erases the shame and effects of the fallen. Fall. Paul describes resurrection as putting on clothing. When you find that in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. So, question. How does that passage help clarify what it feels like to be clothed with a heavenly dwelling? Question number 2. Why is it important to emphasize that this specific body gets transformed? rather than God throwing it away and creating an entirely unrelated new body. Question number 3. How does the absolute divine mandate of the word must change how you view your ultimate future security in Christ? Ponder on that. Let's move to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse number 54. Verse 54 presents the triumphant climax of Paul's resurrection argument. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. In verse 54, this verse shifts the focus from the biological mechanism of the resurrection to its prophetic fulfillment, demonstrating how God completely annihilates the power of death. The phrase, when the perishable has been clothed, Paul repeats the clothing imagery from verse 53 to emphasize that the ultimate defeat of death cannot happen until the bodies of believers are physically transformed. The victory over death is not merely a spiritual concept or a post-mortem state of the soul. It requires a physical, bodily resurrection. The prophetic fulfillment in the phrase, then the saying that is written will come true. Paul is signaling to his audience that the resurrection is not a new emergency backup plan. It is the exact intended fulfillment of ancient Old Testament prophecy. So the prophetic quote, death has been swallowed up in victory. Well, Paul is quoting Isaiah chapter 25, verse 8. The word swallowed up means to consume entirely, devour, or leave no trace. Throughout human history, death has been a great consumer, swallowing up every generation, every empire, and every individual. At the resurrection, God completely reverses this. Death itself is devoured and entirely eliminated. The phrase in victory can also be translated as forever or for all time. Death is not just paused or delayed, it is permanently eliminated. In the ancient world, death was often personified as a monster with an insatiable appetite. Paul reveals that God's victory is so absolute that the monster itself is eaten up and ceases to exist. While believers still face physical death today, verse 54 labels death as a defeated enemy whose expiration date is securely locked in God's prophetic timeline. Paul quotes Isaiah 25, verses 6 through 8, with Isaiah 25, verse 8 together as a group. So, question, what is the broader context of that prophecy? And what else does God promise to do when he swallows up death? I'll give you a hint. Look at the tears and the reproach. Second question, why is it significant that Paul ties the final defeat to death to our physical resurrection rather than just our souls going to heaven? Question number 3, how does the phrase swallowed up help you visualize the completeness of God's victory over the things that currently cause us grief and fear? And with that, I'll end part 3. See you on part 4 of Changed.
Thank you for worshiping with our ministry, and join us again for 15 minutes, more or less, Bible study, liturgical worship, testimonies, and praise.